dressage is a really neat sport that helps the rider communicate more effectively to the horse. And some people would say, okay, it's a dance with the horse. I would say it is in a way, but it's really a sport that involves the least amount of movement with your legs and your hand aids in order to communicate to the horse. And it helps the horse to listen to the rider. Little subtle details you can put on the saddle, like having crystals on your saddle in the dressage, but plain is better. I mean, what you will see is the horse and rider are immaculately turned out. The horses are braided very beautifully. The rider's clothes are extremely well fit and polished, and everything is down to the little details, but it's supposed to be very understated in their turnout. The judges at international competitions are in two to three places around the arena, so they can get every good viewpoint of what the horse is doing and if the horse and rider is straight and if a movement was performed properly, because depending on what view you get of the horse and rider, something can look different from a different angle, and then the points are combined. The canter is the horse's three-beated gait, and you'll see it like for Olympic dressage, you'll see the horses do canter where the announcer will say, now they're changing every 2 strides. Now they're changing every 1 stride. And so what that is like the left front will lead for the canter, and that's called the left lead canter. And then they'll do a flying lead change, and then their right front will lead for the canter stride. So that's the canter. The trot has 2 beats. And the gaits, the different types of movements you'll see at the trot are the passage, which is the trot in place, and piaffe, which is the trot in place, and passage, which is the elevated trot moving forward. You know, when you see a really great dressage partnership go in, it will look effortless, it will look beautiful, it will really flow. And when you see that, you'll really see the artistic merit come out and the horse's personality come out. And that usually will be the test that wins the day. They have a test sheet, and you have to do certain movements that are in that test sheet, but if you do anything that's not in that test sheet for that level, that you get really penalized, like really severely penalized. The riders pretty much train 6 days a week for dressage, and they school the movements a little bit every day, some days about 2 days a week, pushing the horse for the more difficult movements. For the show jumping, the horse and rider jump about 2 to 3 days a week, and in between they do a lot of flat work and dressage work to keep the horses in good condition. And not every day are the horses jump for show jumping, because we like to keep their legs as, you know, probably as their tendons as tight as possible and get them ready for their big performance. Horse jumping started through the military. So the military had to develop different sports to go ahead and help the horses go ahead and be more useful for war, basically. And so from that, the military started training schools in France, different ones in Germany and in Spain. And basically it was to help the riders become better equipped to handle obstacles that they would encounter under battles. So a lot of the sport horses that we have now are either bred across the ocean or they're bred here, and they originated from European lines of horses. Though thoroughbreds that have been bred for racing here in America also do make good show jumpers. There's 3-day eventing and the show jumping, which focuses more on precision between the jumps, whereas the 3-day eventing focuses more on what it used to be for the military, being able to jump solid objects at speed. There's different types of jumps in the show jumping to test the horse's balance, to test their speed, to test the rider's accuracy to the jumps. There's oxers, which are wide jumps that can also be tall, but mostly wide. And so the horse and rider have to get closer to the base of these jumps so they can make the spread of the jump. There's water jumps, where the horse is required to jump an open 12 foot to 14 foot of water. And also there's combinations, and a combination is where you have 2 to 3 jumps pretty close together within 1 stride or 2 strides from apart, and that tests how quickly the horse can come back and get its hind end underneath itself and re-jump the next couple efforts, and they can be very tough. Jumping is scored, there's a time allowed depending on the meters that the course goes over, and it's then scored with how many faults you get for knocking a rail is 4 faults, or having a jump down, which is also, or having a horse refuse, and that's also 4 faults. But when you have a refusal, you have time to get back to the jump, and so that time then adds up. So, you know, if you have a horse that stops out, then you have the 4 faults, and then if it takes you 6 seconds to get back to the jump, that's another 6 faults. The jumping sports and the dressage sports really require a lot of discipline to really become a team with that horse, and that really takes a lot of training.
That story was brought to us by Good Day photojournalist Alex Volek. We also want to thank Tanya Farm and the New Mexico Equestrian Center.